really, I think, preparation for the protection of the yuan. They've said we will open gold vaults outside China. This is a completely new departure. And so far as I understand it, they've said they're opening one in Hong Kong and they're opening one in Saudi Arabia. Why Saudi Arabia? Because that's their biggest oil supply. They would only do that if, let's say, the dollar got into a situation where it was really collapsing and it was threatening to take down the yuan. Now, at that stage, they probably would make a declaration as to how much gold they've got stashed around the People's Liberation Army. I mean, I'm told they've got quite a lot, if you like. The youth wing of the Communist Party. I mean, you've got all these separate accounts where gold has been accumulating. So they could well turn round, if you like, under those circumstances. But I think until then, I mean, China's approach is not to go and upset everybody. It's just let everybody else make the mistakes. And then we've just got to defend ourselves from the fallout of everybody else's errors. And that's really their whole approach. And, you know, it's well, I mean, you're based in Singapore, and I'm sure you sort of get the feeling that they've got this sort of almost Confucian approach. You know, we've been around a long time, and we don't remain being around for a long time by taking hasty actions. It's not the Chinese way of doing it. I think one way to sum it up is that China really does control the physical gold market, and I think she's seeking to control the paper market as well, or take the control, if you like, away from the West. And there are very good reasons for doing this. And it's a policy which has just accelerated recently because her response to American trade sanctions has been very much to take the view, right, well, you know, as I said, you know, we've got to protect ourselves. It's really what they're saying. And so they've accelerated, trade relations and all the rest of it, diplomatic relations around the ASEAN nations, of which I think Singapore is one. They've said, and this is really, I think, preparation for the protection of the yuan. They've said we will open gold vaults outside China. This is a completely new departure. And so far as I understand it, they've said they're opening one in Hong Kong and they're opening one in Saudi Arabia. Why Saudi Arabia? Because that's their biggest oil supply. So, and I actually think it's demanded by the Saudis as well. So you can see that this is sort of going into place. Now, when it comes to the paper markets, they've also opened up the Shanghai Futures Exchange to foreign institutions. And that was announced, a couple of weeks ago. And it's not just gold and silver, it's also all metals. So that, a foreign bank, say, JP Morgan or whatever, doesn't have to set up a Chinese entity in order to deal on the futures exchange. It can deal direct. Just as a Chinese bank can deal direct through Globex on COMEX. So, you know, these are very, very important steps. It gets very little commentary, if you like, in the public arena, but I believe these are extremely important steps, and it shows a desire by the Chinese to get control over the gold market. And why do they want to do that? They want to do that to protect their own currency, because China knows that real money, as opposed to credit, is gold. And if you're going to have a fiat currency problem, then you have got to be able to protect the purchasing power of your currency by linking it to gold. Now, I think, initially anyway, really what China's looking at is looking at it from the point of view of a firm yuan for trade purposes, because obviously you've got, you've got a domestic yuan, you've got an external yuan, as it were, you've got exchange controls. So this is really something which is aimed, if you like, at protecting her position in her overseas markets. Her overseas markets being the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and also BRICS. And the reason for doing this is really, I think quite simple. She can also see that as the dollar goes down, there's got to be a currency which replaces it for BRICS trading. And the idea that you can accept other currencies, I mean, come on, they'll go down with the dollar. And in any event, a lot of these currencies are pretty, you wouldn't want them anyway. I mean, would you really want Turkish lira, for example? I think the answer is no. Would you want, Iranian rial? I think the answer is no. So you can see that, there is a need for a currency common, if you like, to what's called the global south and Asia. And China is looking to provide it. At the moment, just providing it for non-domestic transactions to, if you like, guarantee her trade position. But I think if she does that with her overseas current, her external interests, then I think it will also help provide stability to the domestic currency. If it doesn't, then they'd have to sort of think about, extending gold protection to that currency. But it's all going to depend on what happens to the dollar. Yes, I think that's the initial stage. That's how I would see it anyway. I mean, if I was advising the Chinese government, not that they need any advice from me, then that's the way I would look at it. And I think that's the way they are looking at it. Well, we never use it as a currency. I mean, this is the point. I mean, people like gold bugs and also people like Bitcoin aficionados and all the rest of it, sort of don't understand that actually we do all our business in credit. I mean, it's as simple as that. If let's just say I buy something from you, I pay you out of my bank account. It comes out of a deposit, if you see what I mean. So on that basis, we never deal with each other in gold. I mean, only as a last resort would I actually part with gold to buy something from you. I mean, you might say, yeah, I'd love to have your gold, but I'm going to hang on to it. And, and also this is a big, big fault of which the Bitcoin people just don't understand. They seem to think that you're going to trade, you're going to go and buy, I don't know, packets of cigarettes or dinner or whatever in Bitcoin or fractions of Bitcoin. No, you don't. That's not the way it works. Basically, the way it works is you will buy it in credit attached to Bitcoin. Your question really is, do you want to have credit attached to Bitcoin or gold? You want stability. You don't want something that's going up and up and up and up. Do you see what I mean? Gold is stable.
Yes.
While the price is rising, actually, that's not what's happening. It's the purchasing power of currencies going down. And this is the key thing, which I don't think anybody really grasps. Well, I mean, you're right about DXY. I mean, if you look at the chart, it's terrible. It's heading towards 90 and may not stop there. I mean, it really does look bad. So, the dollar is not good. Now, where it goes from there, I don't know, because remember, if the dollar really does start falling, it's going to undermine all the other currencies as well. The foreigners just got too much in the way of dollars. I mean, they own nearly $40 trillion and underlying financial instruments. It's too much. Now, if you get a contraction in global trade, which is inevitably the consequence of Trump's tariffs, then, anyone who's got dollars has got too many of them. So purely on a commercial basis, there will be sellers. And then you've got the geopolitics like China and all the rest of them who are trying to move away from the dollar. And then, of course, you've got even portfolios. I mean, I think, because I released an article today, I mean, $17.6 trillion is the current valuation of overseas holdings of US equities. 17.6 trillion. I mean, just think of that. That is more than half the total of US GDP. Are they going to hang around once it's clear there's a bear market going on? So what drives the bear market? Well, the thing that drives the bear market is as the US economy underperforms and certainly performs less than the 4.5% yield, let us say, on the in terms of growth on the US 10-year Treasury, then by definition the US is in a debt trap because it cannot service its debt. So what does that mean? It means that foreigners are going to continue to sell out of US treasuries, US financial assets, whatever. And the only way in which that rot will be stopped is for yields to go even higher. And what does that do? It just makes the situation worse. The debt trap just gets worse. So we've got a situation really where, if this was a private sector enterprise, it's basically sliding into bankruptcy. And the first people to understand this are always the foreigners. I mean, the last people to understand it are the politicians. You can see that with Trump's behavior, the big, beautiful bill, adding, God knows how much spending and budget deficit, if you like, to the whole thing. He's behaving as if this isn't a problem. He doesn't, if anybody says to him, look, we've got a problem because we've got too much debt, he'll probably turn around and say, well, if foreigners will buy dollars, they always need dollars,
Gold and silver have once again captured the spotlight as America teeters on the edge of unprecedented financial and political instability. With Donald Trump's recent surge in polling numbers despite multiple legal challenges and the U.S. economy walking a tightrope of inflation, rate uncertainty, and record-breaking debt levels, it has become abundantly clear that the fiat system, rooted in endless money printing and blind trust, is broken. Gold and silver are not just alternative investments anymore. They are lifeboats in a storm of economic and institutional collapse. Every fiat currency in history has eventually failed. The US dollar, once backed by gold, now floats on the whims of policymakers and central bankers. The Federal Reserve claims to fight inflation, yet it created the very problem with years of near-zero interest rates and trillions in stimulus. And now, with CPI inflation numbers still sticky and consumer sentiment in freefall, they've cornered themselves into a lose-lose situation. Raise rates and tank the economy, or ease and ignite another inflation wave. Either way, fiat suffers, but physical gold and silver, finite, real, and time-tested, thrive. In the last few weeks, silver has quietly outperformed many other assets, pushing past key resistance levels while being largely ignored by the mainstream media. Gold, too, is testing all-time highs amid global central bank accumulation. Why are nations like China, Russia, and even Poland buying tons of gold while telling their citizens to hold cash? Because they know what's coming. They know the dollar is losing its dominance and that the next financial system won't be built on paper IOUs. It will be anchored to something real. Trump's return to the headlines isn't just about politics. It's about economic sentiment. His recent statements slamming the Federal Reserve and calling for a return to sound money are echoing louder than ever. Trump understands that Americans are losing faith in the institutions that manage their money. Confidence in the Fed is near all-time lows. The Treasury is issuing debt at a breakneck pace. Social Security is on track to go bankrupt. Meanwhile, the stock market continues to float on speculation, artificially supported by Fed jawboning and tech hype. But beneath the surface, cracks are forming, young investors are waking up. They're beginning to see the trap. Save in dollars, and you're guaranteed to lose purchasing power. Trust in stocks and crypto, and you're subject to manipulation and regulatory whims. The only assets with a 5,000-year track record of preserving wealth through every war, recession, and regime change are gold and silver. And right now, silver is arguably the most undervalued strategic asset on Earth. Not only is it a monetary metal, but it's also essential in solar panels, electric vehicles, and industrial applications. The supply is shrinking while demand is surging. This is not a speculative narrative. It's a supply chain reality. Meanwhile, America is sleepwalking into another debt crisis. With over $34 trillion in national debt and interest payments now rivaling military spending, the writing is on the wall. The government has no plan to pay it off. The only tool they have left is inflation. Silent theft through currency debasement. If you're holding dollars, you're the victim. Every printed dollar makes your savings weaker. Every stimulus check, every bailout, every new government program funded by the printing press, it's a transfer of your wealth to the state. Look at the banks. Regional banking stress has returned, and big names are warning of a new wave of collapses. If even one major institution falls, a domino effect could ensue. And with FDIC reserves under pressure and trust in banks declining, people are beginning to ask serious questions. What happens to my savings if the system locks up? If you can't hold it, you don't own it, and that's why physical metals are making a comeback. Gold and silver require no counterparty. They cannot be hacked, frozen, or inflated away. They don't rely on government promises or Wall Street gymnastics. In times of war, regime change, or collapse, like the world is inching toward now, they are the final fallback. Just this week, Trump warned that America is closer than ever to losing the dollar as the world reserve currency. That's not alarmism, it's fact. The BRICS nations are actively developing a gold-backed trading currency, and the world is watching. The petrodollar era is ending, and with it, the dollar's dominance. Gold and silver will outlive fiat. They have outlived every empire that thought it could print its way to prosperity, and they will outlive this one too. While Wall Street distracts you with AI stocks and debt-fueled bubbles, the smart money is quietly accumulating hard assets. If the monetary system resets, and history shows it always does, those holding metals will have purchasing power while everyone else scrambles for crumbs.